Hi, I'm Dianne Devitt, and welcome to This is a Stick Up. It's a continuing series that we have with my friend and colleague and New York theater icon Bob Hoffman, who is the VP of Broadway Inbound, which is a Schubert organization, company. And Bob, I'm excited to continue this, and I love our conversations. I'm enjoying them, so thank you so much.
I am.
But we've spoken a little bit about you, your background, and welcome to New York after 35 years. But
Thank
you're
you.
an official New Yorker. I'm dubbing you that, okay? And just the work that Broadway Inbound does in terms of how it started and identifying the different groups you work with, but more importantly, bringing the awareness that people, before they travel to New York, have the opportunity now more than ever to book their shows.
Correct.
And through a variety of channels.
Yes.
Whether it's travel agents or tour operators, meetings and events, or FIT on their own. Right. So hotels.
Yeah, you go to Expedia is a good example. Because if you're going to buy something, you go to Expedia and you're going to buy your travel.
Right.
You should be able to also buy the activities that
so
you're going to do.
So there's links
Broadway.
and links and links everywhere, which
and
is
we do
wonderful.
a lot of putting that together.
Which is fabulous, because now you're sharing with me, which I'm so happy to hear, that the houses are full.
Yes.
That the theaters are full, and that to me is like just the most exciting thing as a New Yorker.
It's great.
I don't want my theaters to be ever empty again.
Right.
Ever.
I'm with you.
So on that note, like, what is your perspective on the industry and on the new shows? Like, how is the theater looking at the new audiences in terms of the young people, and is there a way that they're looking at it? I mean, I still see some classics. I mean, this year we've got Carousel and
My Fair Lady.
My Fair Lady.
Right.
Coming back, fabulous shows, right?
Absolutely.
So what's the discussion about dealing with millennials and Gen Z, and is there not?
No,
the
discussion.
Theater is the theater. You know?
No, I think it's ongoing. Now, there's two different sides to that. Part of it is audience development, and part of it is the creative development, right? So when you think about what the theater is doing, you're looking at both of those. I mean, when you look at shows like Hamilton, you have to look at Hamilton as saying that it really, and it's not the only one, but really made a big difference.
That's a perfect example.
It's a perfect example of something that my 14-year-old really wanted to see, because the music spoke to him in a way that the music from My Fair Lady may not, although it does to me, and it does to a lot of the audience. So making sure that there is something there that is sort of cross-generational, I think, is really very important. And I'm not saying that there's a definitely an artistic conversation about that, because you want to connect to the popular culture. And if you're connecting to a popular culture, then you're connecting to people at all ages and all different nationalities and all different races and sex. I mean, you really want to be able to be part of the fabric.
So basically, it's like we're all facing right now. We have 5 generations working.
Right, absolutely.
At one time. In fact, I went to a wonderful presentation a couple of weeks ago from a woman, Ann Leota, who spoke about multi-generations. And so the boomers, we don't want to be called boomers. We want to be called classics. And
you're a classic. I'm a classic
now. Exactly.
Oh, gosh.
And then the seniors. So the seniors would be my mother. I mean, my mother, God bless her, she's 88 years old, but she's playing cards this weekend with her 95-year-old friend. So, and they go to the theater.
Absolutely.
They love the theater, and so you have that generation, and then you have the students at 18, 20
And the thing about it
years
is you can't say that the 18 and 20-year-olds are going to necessarily want to see something different from your
No,
mom.
there's
Actually,
no-
I think that they oftentimes want to see the same kinds of shows. They want it to speak to them with where they are, and a lot. And so really you're trying to create a diverse, live entertainment options that speak to people in their time. And I think that the theater does.
Yeah, I think too, what you reminded me of, we spoke a little bit before about the value of live. There's nothing like live theater.
Right.
There is nothing to replace it, okay? No. And so the older generations, we go because we've been entertained, we've been inspired, we've been changed, right? We've had that true cathartic experience. The younger people, this is new to them.
Right.
It's not a YouTube. It's not something that's a video. They're watching that. So it's a different dynamic of them taking it in.
And watching them embrace it is really amazing. I'll give you a quick story on this. My son is 14. When he was in the 6th grade, we arranged, because of the class trip that they had been taking for years had fallen through, and my wife definitely wanted something to happen. And the teacher was a big theater fan, and she said, let's make it a theater, but let's make it an entire day.
Great.
Let's come. They wound up coming out to the theater. They wound up taking a workshop. They learned the music. They saw Matilda. They saw the music from the show. They learned the music from the show. They learned some of the choreography. They went and had lunch at Hard Rock Cafe and then went to see the show. And they saw actors that they had just seen. To every one of them, I mean, they started posting online about having seen that show. And we live in Queens, but many of them, this was their first experience of the theater.
Isn't that something?
But it wasn't, it was just they saw something that was unique to them and was different. And it was the live experience of that really kind of turned them on to the point that they wanted to see more. Hopefully they will.
Isn't
now
that
they
great?
Continue to come every year from that school.
Wow.
But so we were saying before, it's like part of it is the producing. The other part is what we as the sort of the business side of the theater are trying to do to engage more students. And the Broadway League has a program called Bridges that I love. There's many programs.
Oh yeah, tell me about that.
Yeah, there's many programs out there now that are really trying to bring more young people into the theater as a part of audience development. Bridges is one of my favorites, and I think it's still new. It's probably in its 2nd year.
Okay.
But the goal of that is to make sure that every public high school student in the city sees a Broadway show.
At least one.
At least one. And so they're working with the shows, and they're slowly making it so that more and more students every year are coming in as a part of it. And they're targeting 10th grade so that the 10th graders all have access to the theater. And that's one of many. It's one that I really love because I like the idea of anything big when it says every student who is in the public school is going to wind up seeing the show.
You know, I remember this from Carole King.
Right.
When she was interviewed. Of course, the
As
show
a part
Beautiful.
Of Beautiful. Right.
Well,
It's wonderful. It's beautiful.
I love the show. But Carole King said, if there weren't a music program, she grew up in the Bronx.
Right.
If there weren't a music program in her school, she'd have never been exposed to music. It would never have brought her to Broadway. And you know, the concept of Broadway got to be so, I want to say, out of the, realm of thinking that an average person could go to a show.
Right.
The theater, the prices were crazy. Now I see there's a real opportunity. There's half-price tickets. There's so many things, like you say, online, discounts, this and that appeal to people, so and there's all sorts of off-Broadway that's excellent. So I think that you're right, that the introducing it and making it accessible.
Right.
That you're not afraid to go. That I can say this, that you don't think it's for them and not me.
Right.
Theater is for everybody.
And for them to get a sense of it, for students to get a sense of it, and for people to have it and have theater and Broadway, but theater as a whole to become a regular part of their life. And I find it, I mentioned the Broadway League, and we're also working on a program out of the league that is for more family engagement. And you think about, because I talk to the families in our neighborhood and around, and they all want their families to have that experience of attending a show as well. You said that you went when you were younger, and I did, but I didn't live here at the time.
Right.
But I want that for my kids, and I want it for all of the kids. So we're really looking at how to engage families so that coming to Broadway is a regular part of what you do, because it's an experience that you want to share with your children. So hopefully those kinds of programs are going to make it so that we have more young people coming into the theater, which is the case. I mean, the audience is getting a bit younger. It's still traditionally older, but it's even the last statistics coming out of the league, the audience numbers went down. It was the largest number of youth that they've had in the theater in a number of years, and I think that's going to make it something that sustains the theater overall. So the two will go hand in hand. The artistic side is going to drive the audience of the younger people to come into the theater, and the other way, exposing younger people, is going to drive them to the theater.
But I think you also, like you said, you mentioned Hamilton, which is the best example, is that show just was written for everybody.
Absolutely.
But the young people, when you heard the rap music, loved it, right?
Well, and you think about it, we talked about My Fair Lady and
Right.
Carousel, and that was the popular music of its day.
Of its day, right.
And it's still gorgeous. I mean, those
Gorgeous
scores are
music.
something
I
that
know.
that are just, unmatched really in many ways. But then you look at something, like Hamilton and Come From Away, and we mentioned in another one of the segments, the band's visit.
The band's visit, yeah.
And the music that is coming out of these shows, and many others like them, are much more contemporary, and they connect in a way, I think, with the populace that My Fair Lady does in a different way today, but maybe did when it was first written.
And you're right, because this is a generation too who always are plugged into music.
Absolutely.
So the music is sound is so important to them. I've been doing a lot of research in the sensory communication area, and I actually have a research project going on by generation, by sense, and prioritizing them. And it's interesting because the older generation prefer one, touch, where the younger generation was the sound.
Right.
And because they're so sound and touch, they grew up with touching their devices. So,
Right.
so it's just the theater is so sensory. So what is the trend? Like, do you see a trend in the industry, or do you see a trend in tourism, or in Broadway in general, or in theater, in global theater? Do you see any one trend coming out of it?
In the trend in theater, or trend in
the type of shows, or like you just spoke to me a little bit about how there's like there's no one size fits all.
I think that's what I
there
was
is
going to say.
no
Diversity.
one size. It's all diversity, and I think that's the biggest thing that has happened over the past few years. That's making the doors, stay open and the theaters full. Is that, gee, I'm in the mood for a musical. I'm in the mood for a drama. Let me go to something that's a little edgy.
Right.
Let me go to something that's a history, and there's something for everyone.
Absolutely,
Right?
and there really is. And you started talking about it, and you said go to a musical, and then we mentioned the musical, and everyone has an idea as to what that is, but there are so many different types of musicals that are out there.
So
I mean, you look at at a show like The Lion King and what Disney has done on Broadway,
Right.
and they brought a lot of youth into the theater. They've also brought a lot of wonderful artistic vision into the theater around those musicals, and there's a certain type of style of show that they do, which then but that's a musical, and so is The Band's Visit a musical, and so is, there's so many others that are out there. Look at Mean Girls getting ready to come in.
Exactly.
There's musicals are across the board. There's so many different choices.
So many different choices. And listen, I remember when Disney first came and we all discussed, is it spectacle or is it theater? Is it spectacle, is it theater? But you know what? It's both.
It's both, and I was thinking the same thing. You said that, of course. Spectacle is a part of the theater. It's not the only element, but there are people. We talked about people want to see different kinds of things. If you want to see spectacle, some of the best singing and dancing and sets and costumes that you could possibly imagine, you can see on Broadway. It doesn't have to necessarily even be a musical. You're going to see spectacle in plays.
Well,
I think of Angels in America, which is going to open again this year.
I cannot wait to see that.
I don't know if I call it a spectacle, but when you think of the theatricality.
But the theatricality of it, right.
That creates a spectacle in a completely different way.
Look, and there's so much to always talk about, but I love the fact that The Lion King is in the Ziegfeld Theatre.
Right.
Which was all spectacle.
At least that's where it started. It
started, right? It started there, and my grandmother went to the Ziegfeld Theatre, and she tells me stories how they went out on top of the roof after the show.
Right.
Isn't that cool?
Which now they're Disney offices.
Oh, that's not fair. Well, anyway,
well, it's
Bob,
beautiful offices.
So, what's the most common question you get asked about the industry? Do people have one question that they ask you? They probably say, "What's your favorite play?" And you say,
"I say all of them." Really, there's right? So many different things. Actually, the thing that I hear is, "What should I see?" And that's really, what's the new thing? What should I see? Right. That's probably the biggest question that I get. And going back to part of our conversation earlier, that really depends upon who you are, and
where you are, what kind of mood you're in,
right? And what you like, because there is something there for everybody.
So, what would you like to share with everyone? And you've shared so much insight and brought out the real passion of the industry. It's just special.
Yeah.
But is there something that you'd like to just share with people about the theater and going to a play and expectations and any little secrets that you have?
I don't know if secrets is the right
know if
word.
that's the right word, right?
It's but you, to me, we talked about a live experience, and the fact that the audience, we have so many different stimuli coming at us every day from so many different directions, from media and from people and the streets of New York and all these things. What I love about the theater is that all goes away. It all goes away, and the experience of being in a theater and the lights go dark and your phone goes off. Maybe you have an intermission, but the phone goes off and you're just involved in this live experience that is a communication from the stage to the audience, and the audience is a big part of it. And in a lot of things that we do, we're more passive observers than we are active, engaged in the product. And I think with a lot of things that happen technologically today, yes, you can text and you can be a part of it in that way, but it's not the same thing as that emotional exchange that you get in a live performance. And so no matter what it is, to me, take the time to really just be in that space and enjoy the live event and the people and the experience that's going on around you.
And you know what? That is, and that's, thank you. That's really well said, because it's the value. I just saw Hugh Jackman, and he, of course, was expounding the values of going to film and being in a movie. You know, there's just being with other people and feeling that energy, laughing together, crying together, emoting.
Going to the movie theater instead of looking at it.
Instead of online. But
that's different.
But just to your point, you know, we go into a church, we go into a temple, we go into a place to worship, and we shut everything out. We go into the theater, those doors close, and your eyes are on the stage.
And something's going to happen there on that day, on that night, that is not going to happen again.
That's not going to happen
because it's not. I mean, the show will be the same show tomorrow, but you bring something different to it.
Exactly.
And what you bring to it as an audience member is a big part of the show. And you know that from your theater background.
I do
It's
know.
never complete until you have that engagement with the audience. And that makes it live, that makes it exciting, it makes it different every night.
Well, Bob Hoffman, I can't thank you enough for being here. I'm so excited. I want to leave and go to a show right now.
What do you want to go see? What do you want to go see?
anything that has a seat in the orchestra.
That's great.
But I want to thank you so much for sharing all the insight, and I also want to leave everyone with the idea of don't prejudge anything with the theater. We were so fortunate to have Bob share with us his experience and the work that Broadway Inbound is doing with from the workshops to theater to tickets to exposing people. So go out and enjoy yourself, everyone, and always come to New York. Thank you. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Dan.
Really
that was
appreciate
terrific.
it.
That was
Thank
really
you.
nice. Thank you.